when compared with schools in affluent areas. Kwezi zimnyama kakhulu izikolo lo mcimbi wemidlalo kuyabonakala ba awuthathi inxaxheba abantwana abathathi inxaxheba kakhulu in sports, arts and music, many schools. Because if you recall, Wednesdays ezikolo zethu used to be izikolo izinsuku zesport and some Fridays. Kodwa kwezi izikolo former model schools, that culture is still continuing. And I think it's a matter that Honorable MEC Garden and Honorable Consiwe Mhlambi, that collaboration efuneka iqalwe kakhulu.
Sorry, Honorable Chairperson, where are the honorable members of the Portfolio Committee? I only see Honorable Ndabeni.
Can you go back, members, through your Deputy Chair of Chairs to your place? Though this is a report of the Committee of the Whole House.
Proceed to Honorable Member.
Thank you, Deputy Chair of Chairs. The last observation that we have made, out of the number of schools that were visited, the 5,341 schools with 5.109 as public and 232 as independent schools. Only 237 schools were visited, which is a sample. Once again, the department yoyisakele ukulungisa le meko ezikolo ezimbalwa. And remember, very few new schools that were visited in January. We have gone back to those schools as asinazo. The last observation that we have made, which links up with the report that was presented yesterday by the Committee on Public Works and Infrastructure, that many of these school building projects bezikhona kwisikole sezafika kuzo, majority of those projects zishiywe ixesha. In other words, i-time frames zoba zigqitywe ukwakhiwa zona noba zii-toilets noba zii-classrooms. The last observation that we've made again in January is that as much as in the report appreciates the fact that at least each department has improved quite significantly when it comes to deliver kwelena support materials schooling, but the challenge is equality. It's a stationary siyaphaya. It's a challenge engumangaliso. Kwesibini, njoba o principal bethu maxesha amaninzi abakwazi ukuba nechance yokuba baresponde msinya xa kune shortages, because i-delivery service providers sideliverisha mhlawumbi kwizikolo ezi-10 kuloo area, kanti i-process ithi xa bedeliverishile mabalinde kuvulwe i-box kuchekishe uba ingaba i-contents zezi beziodiwe na. So we did advise ukuthi mhlawumbi if possible izikolo mazibe nazo ii-cameras xa bezivulele, so that xa une-shortage bakwazi uyicapturisha kula camera, because ngathi laa mntu ebeyideliverisha hayi nomdideliverisha eziphelele. So, Deputy Chair of Chairs, we don't want to waste time. We therefore table all the general findings that are here, as well as their recommendations. Let me take this opportunity of thanking all members. I know at some stage, Honorable Deputy Chair of Chairs was left alone, was Gqibezela Zoyedwa. He visits. I know that at one stage, one member in Amatole East, which I no longer recall, was Gqibezela Yedwa, but also the coordinators that we were able to utilize from various committees, as well as all school governing bodies were part of these visits, inclusive of role that has been played by ama-councillor ethu, because imajority yawo beyinxalenye yes visits, because ekugqibeleni sishiyeka nabo ezi ngxaki. So we hereby therefore table the report for consideration by the House. Thank you, Deputy Chair of Chairs.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Are there any questions, honorable members? Noted, Honorable Kuma. You are the only one. Proceed.
Number 8, the departmental systems are failing seriously. I think that needs to be changed because the department is functioning well. That's why we got 83%. Some of the system, you need to be specific on that. And number 26, there is no budget allocated to repair disaster schools. I know what you meant, but when you say disaster schools, there is a meaning. Disaster schools are the schools which does not perform. So it must be written schools affected by disaster. Thank you.
Can we then proceed? Honorable Van Vuren. I call clarities to you, MEC.
And not black enough, not white enough, and not black enough. Honorable Deputy Chair of Chairs, I humbly greet and welcome everyone here today. I want to say from the onset that the DA fully supports this report. I was part of the committee in adopting the report and agreeing with each and every word in this report. So the DA does not suppress this report. Let us make that clear. I also want to agree with the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee that this House will have to invoke Rule 204 if we look at the repetitive findings that we have in the report. I also want to refer the members of this House to look at general findings 2, 4, 8, 9, 10, 13, 15, and 21, and then you will see why we are so concerned as a Portfolio Committee. The facts are there. At the beginning of 2023, the Education Committee visited schools in the province to determine their readiness for the 2023 academic year and to check on the progress made by the department regarding the implementation of House resolutions since the follow-up visits in July 2022. It's not me saying it, it's a report saying it. This is one of the crucial roles of this committee and this legislature's oversight. During the visits, it was once again discovered that the department was not able to adhere to most of the recommendations from the visits conducted in July 2022. It's reflected in our report as well. Hundreds of schools had not received LTSM upon opening of schools, despite Premier Mabuyane and MEC Gade making very big yet empty public promises that all schools will have the needed LTSM once learners arrive. We got this information in July that schools did not receive it. Various stakeholders have requested the department to decentralize funds to speed up service delivery, but the ruling party is very determined to hold on to the control of funds. Why? We also learned on these visits that there seems to be no clear plan to ensure the safety of learners and educators while attending school. Our province has hundreds of schools which are not properly fenced, and we have seen it. I was there. which allows criminals access to school grounds and to our learners. A school with vacancies, what does that mean? A school with vacancies means that there are learners who are not being taught when they are supposed to be taught, and there are educators who are overworked because of the vacancies, trying to fill the gaps from missing educators in approved rules. The department has acknowledged that not all educators have been appointed. There's a 4% not been appointed, and that was a question I asked, and they told me that. We still have schools in this province in 2023 that do not have a source of water, electricity, and dignified sanitation facilities. It will always come up. Langalam Viki. Since we are on the topic of sanitation facilities, let's talk about pit latrines and infrastructure. MEC Garda, on an ENCA interview, I also watch TV, said, and I quote, "But for me, it is not just about if this kid was found in a toilet or has fallen into a toilet, but there is more to be investigated. Honorable MEC, through you, Deputy Chair of Chairs, this is not just a kid. Her name was Langalam Viki." The MEC then went on to also talk about Lumka Mketwa, who fell in a pit latrine in 2018, I will still remember that, and lost her life. He then went on appearing to make excuses, calling foul play, and explaining that the responsibility falls under the Minister, Angie Motshekga. This is called passing the buck. Passing the buck. Our MEC seems to be an escape artist. He is quick to escape, being held to account, and taking responsibility. Do not pass the buck. Even if internal investigations by the department, which I must say most of the citizens of this country no longer trust, the fact remains that after nearly 30 years of ANC rule, our children and teachers are stripped of their dignity by being forced to use pit latrines. I used a pit latrine when I was 8 years old in Old Battlesworth in the northern areas. I know what it is to use pit latrines. There are no valid excuses, and it is a poor show of a character by the MEC to make excuses and pass the blame instead of prioritizing this human indignity. Prioritize. Let's talk about 100 million that Eastern Cape Department of Education lodged, which was meant for infrastructure, irrespective of what it was meant. In the interview mentioned, MEC Garda explained that in November 2022, a rollover of 400 million was given to the Department of Education and approved by the National Treasury on 18 January 2023. Here the MEC once again blames the National Treasury for only approving the funds in January of this year. The money was then lost to the Eastern Cape Department of Education because there was no clear plan on how to utilize these funds, even though other provinces were able to provide plans and benefit from these funds. I will not name other provinces. In a province where the education of our children is crippled by the slow-moving mechanisms within infrastructure, that is a fact. And in a province that has massive backlogs within school infrastructure, 82.3 billion. How do you not have a concrete plan or the ability to spend money on these massive backlogs when it is given to you and your officials' education department? In my opinion, the answer is the inefficient ability and leadership within the Department of Education in this promise. I would love to know what the Premier's true thoughts are on this. We are getting results. 77%, good, excellent. But look at the circumstances our children have to study under. It could have been 100% if we...
5 minutes left.
How many?
5.
Oh, that's long enough. But as citizens of South Africa that has been brought to its knees by the governing council, the governing party. We will never know the actual truth as those from the governing ANC will rather play politics and protect the cadres before identifying real failures and eliminating these. We must be honest. If people don't do their work, they should get the boot. If people don't deliver the services they are supposed to deliver the service, we can't keep on protecting them. We cannot do that. It's our children that suffer. I'm pleading with the Honorable MEC looking at me. I want you to hear what I say. I'm pleading with you. I'm not fighting with you. Decentralizing funds, especially within infrastructure, will be beneficial to the department, schools, and the community. If funds for infrastructure are paid directly to schools, the school can be held directly responsible by the department and by the community. Give those responsibility to schools. If funds are paid directly to schools, they can appoint their own contractors. And today we have heard the underperformance, the non-performing of contractors that are repeatedly and been appointed to do the same job that they have failed to do. The cost of the middleman in the department's case, the implementing agent, will be eliminated, making more funds available for actual infrastructure projects. We need concrete plans to be implemented on the ground, Honorable MEC of Education. Note that I said to be implemented. The Education Department has wonderful plans, wonderful ideas, great policies. I've worked with these policies for 30 years, excellent policies. But when it comes to the implementation phase, then it falls short. Honorable MEC Gada, as the political head, we would want the Honorable MEC to look at the policy and to see that these policies are implemented by the officials. And that is what we would like to see. I'm going to close now. The DA supports the report. You want to ask me a question? I've still got a minute. I'm not sharing. It is not merely, sorry, Chair. I'm sorry, I'm tired. It is not merely good enough to have plans on paper if your local and provincial departments are incapable of implementing these plans.
Sorry, Honorable Saziwa, your hand is up.
Thank you, Deputy Chair of Chairs. Don't worry, my friend. I just want you to observe Rule 85, that when you address the MEC, you must address the MEC through the presiding officer.
No, I changed that stance. Sorry, Honorable Deputy Chair. I don't want to fight with my chair, but I just want us to know that we are concerned what is happening. We know that the MEC is trying its utmost to see that performances are moving upwards, but going along with performances are also the infrastructure. The circumstances must be of such a nature that we do not have a Langalam Wiki again in this Eastern Cape. I thank you, Honorable Deputy Chair of Chairs. That's all I've got to say. We support this report.
Thank you. Honorable Zibula.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Chair of Chairs. Greetings, Honorable Deputy Chair of Chairs, greetings, commissars and fighters. Greetings to all members of the House and the people of the Eastern Cape. Honorable Deputy Chair of Chairs, let me start by quoting from the Freedom Charter, hoping to revive the consciousness of some ANC leaders in the Eastern Cape. Xa kunje ke kuye kufune kuchukunyiswa izazela kuba hleze kuthi kanti kulityelwe ukuthi babenzele for intoni. Ngeba ndisebenzisa laa ntetho yesiXhosa ke ethi apho akhe ama khona amanzi awuphinde ame. Kodwa ke ayisebenzi loo ntetho kuba ke i-ANC yazange ke yenza nenye into eyithethwa yi-Freedom Charter. Oku kokwethu ke kukuba sithi sibakhumbulani izithembiso ezinazenzayo kusukela ngo-1994. The Freedom Charter says under the title, the doors of learning and culture shall be opened. The government shall discover, develop and encourage national talent for the enhancement of cultural life. All the cultural treasures of mankind shall be open to all by free exchange of books, ideas and contacts with other lands. The aim of education shall be to teach the youth to love their people and their culture, to honor human brotherhood, liberty and peace. Education shall be free, compulsory, universal and equal for all children. Higher education and technical training shall be open to all by all means of state allowances and scholarship awarded on the basis of merit. Adult literacy shall be ended by mass state education plan. Teachers shall have all the rights like other citizens. The color-blind cultural life in sport and in education shall be abolished. I'm referring, Honorable Deputy Chair of Chairs, to this blueprint because the ANC has betrayed the Freedom Charter, which is the document that they should be a guiding document to them. It is the EFF led by the fearless EFF Student Command, which has been at the forefront of the fight for free, quality and decolonized education, in line with the demand of the Freedom Charter for the doors of learning to be opened for all. Not only has the ANC betrayed this fundamental demand of the Freedom Charter, it has betrayed the generation of 1976 and resolved to suspend, expel, imprison, and even kill young people who have been calling for the fulfillment of this demand for dignity. It is the ANC-led government that has presided over a systematic failure of the Department of Education in the Eastern Cape. I want us to keep in mind, as I mentioned, just a few of the challenges that the people of Eastern Cape encounter with the Department of Education. My mistake, it cannot be just a few challenges if you speak of Department of Education. There are still much schools which the government has been saying over the years that they will eradicate. There are schools where learners are being taught under trees and no schooling takes place on a rainy days. There are schools with pit toilets and toilets that are in a very bad condition that learners are unable to use them. We are getting reports every now and then of children that die in these pit toilets. There are schools that are dilapidated to the extent that the learners' safety is not guaranteed. There are schools with no proper fencing to safeguard schools' assets as well as learners and educators. There are schools with no water. There are schools with no cleaners and night security at the school. Actually, the non-teaching staff has not been employed in the Department of Education for a number of years. There are schools that start the year without textbooks and stationery. There are schools that do not have network and are unable to use tablets and other gadgets for enhancing learning. There are schools with overcrowded classrooms which were promised prefabricated structures for a long time. There are schools with serious shortage of furniture for both learners and teachers to the extent that learners have to sit on the floor. I'm reminded, Honorable Deputy Chair of Chairs, of a case that has been trending on media, a picture of learners of Archie Velile School in Dimbaza, where learners were literally sitting on the floor. How can a learner sit on the floor for hours and still be expected to learn and perform at maximum? The department has promised to deliver the furniture on the 14th of February 2023, on a Valentine's Day. I'm emphasizing this day, Honorable Deputy Chair of Chairs, to put an emphasis to education that they need to keep their mind because, to keep their promise, because a Valentine's Day is a day of promises and those promises should be kept. It is a sad situation as learners are told to come with chairs from their homes in this school. The same challenge of school furniture is also at Mtiza High at Santa in East London, where the school is requesting learners to bring 250 so that they may be allocated chairs and desks. Learners do not have desks, who do not have chairs, learners do not have desks and chairs, regardless of that unacceptable practice, considering that the school is a no-fee school. Parents are not paying fees but are requested money for a child to qualify to be allocated a desk and a chair.
3 minutes left.
Thank you very much. There is a challenge of scholar transport which remains unresolved. This has been made worse by the Department of Transport, which does not have an appetite to permanently resolve it. There are schools with a serious shortage of teachers. There is not enough maintenance budget. Schools now are opting to request more money from the school, from the parents to make up for the shortfall on maintenance budget. And that maintenance budget is being used now even on major school infrastructure needs that should have been dealt by the department directly. All the above challenges speaks to an ANC-led government that has abandoned their own guiding document, the Freedom Charter. The ANC has been using the Freedom Charter only when it needs to capture the people during the period of campaign. EFF has a plan to turn around the Department of Education. EFF is ready to lead the Eastern Cape government. EFF leads. Salute.
Honorable Zinti.
Honorable Deputy Chair of Chairs, Brad Henry once said, no other investment yields as great a return as the investment in education. An educated workforce is the foundation of every community and the future of every economy. Education is the backbone of development. In the context of poor families or societies, education is the only instrument to get out from the vicious cycle. That is why, Honorable Deputy Chair of Chair, we cannot overemphasize the power to invest in education and infrastructure in our schools. Honorable Deputy Chair of Chairs, the Eastern Cape Legislature embarked on school oversight at the beginning of each and every year to do findings and recommendations, which were never implemented by the departmental officials. Ufika xa kuphindwa kumjikelo wesibini ukundwendelwa izikolo akukho nasinye isindululo esithe saphunyezwa. There are no consequences ezilandelwayo. Loo nto sithi kuyibiza ke ngapha ngakuthi kundindwa nje udlolo. Poor infrastructure. The Eastern Cape Department of Education has shown little consistency on political will to ensure that schools in the province are fixed with agency that is needed. The eradication of mud structures was scheduled to be finalized way back in 2014, but we are still talking of mud schools that were built by the community after so many years of democracy. Honorable Deputy Chair of Chairs, this is a joke in our province. Lindokuhle Primary School in Alfred Nzo is still a mud school with no proper fencing. The committee has recommended that the department must provide the school with the temporary classrooms. Knowing the officials of the department, this recommendation will take years to be implemented. Isikolo esikwilali yakuQombolo kumhlaba wakuCentane abantwana bafundela phansi kwemeko eMaqongo. Esi sikolo sathwaxwa zinkqwithelo ngo-2012. Ngo-2017 bathenjiswa ukuba bazokwakhelwa isikolo. Akukabikho nto ilungiswayo nangoku. Yithani ndiyaxoka ndinise kwesi sikolo. Safe and dignified schools infrastructure ensures quality education for all learners across the province. This is because school infrastructure is not just about safety, but has an impact on pupils' well-being. Basic Education Minister Angie Motshekga, over 8 years ago, has signed the minimum uniform norms and standards for public school infrastructure, stipulating the basic levels of amenities and services that every school must have to function correctly. In conclusion, the UDM will never understand, Deputy Chair of Chairs, the shortage of staff when positions are funded. Yintoni enzima abantu bakwethu ekubhengezeni izithuba ezikhona kwisebe lezemfundo baqeshe abantu kuvalwe izikhewu. Niyonqena ukuqesha? Kutheni le nto abantu basoloko beme izingqongqo? You always feel comfortable when everybody holding the highest position are acting. Nisazi into yobana awukho zigqibo abanokuzithatha ngoba bengenamagunya bengaqeshekanga. I-UDM ke iyayamkela oluphindaphindo lwe-report nezi-recommendations nezi-findings. Akukho nto esinakuyithetha ngoba kuyabonakala
Can you
into
please
yobana
wrap up? Your time is up.
eli sebe lezemfundo lisafuna ukujonga kakuhle sithi siyi-UDM. Enkosi.
Honorable Ndabeni.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Chair of Chairs. Honorable Deputy Chair of Chairs, Honorable Speaker in absentia, Honorable Deputy Speaker, Honorable Premier in absentia, Honorable members of the Executive, members of the August House, our officials, I saw the DG, it's no longer here, the DGs, the HODs from other departments, ladies and gentlemen, comrades and friends. Let me thank the African National Congress, my political home, for allowing me to be part of this important debate as we conclude the month of human rights. We want to salute the generation of the 1960, the militant generation of 1960, the freedom fighters who stood firm, defying the brutal system of apartheid by organizing a march against the past laws. It was on the 21st of March 1960 when the barbaric apartheid government opened fire, killing innocent people who were marching against the oppressive past laws. Their sin was to demand political freedom in the country of their birth. Honorable Deputy Chair of Chairs, in reacting to the massacre of 1960, one of the leading American newspapers described the incident as tragedy, barbaric by the apartheid state. Following the massacre, the leadership of the African National Congress, as led by the President General at the time, Inkosi Chief Albert Luthuli, O.R. Tambo and Nelson Mandela, and many leaders of the progressive forces, they publicly denounced the past laws by openly banning their passports as a way of showing the defiance, the demonstration against the use of the past laws. Honorable Deputy Chair of Chairs, this was a turning point in the history of South Africa. Following this massacre, all the progressive forces, including the African National Congress, decided to shift from the engagement with the regime to focus on the military form of struggle. That led to the formation of Umkhonto we Sizwe in 1961 and many other liberation formations. That was a turning point in the history of South Africa, where people took up arms against the brutal system of apartheid. One of the leading scholars, Honorable Deputy Chair of Chairs, a leader of the revolution in Algeria, Frantz Fanon, the Marxist scholar, a great theoretician, contending with this development, he had this to say. And contending with the colonialism and colonization of a special type in the context of South African politics, he said, and I quote, that the colonizers everywhere in the world will impose hegemony by making sure that they control the economies of the colonized nation, imposing education system, imposing political system, demonizing the culture and beliefs of the colonized people as backward and ungodly, close quote. That's Frantz Fanon. As the African National Congress, therefore, Honorable Chair of Chairs, we welcome the announcement by the President of the ANC and the President of the Republic by opening up the inquest on the assassination and death of President of the African National Congress, Inkosi Chief Albert Luthuli. It is in this context that we would want the nation to know exactly what has happened in 1967 on the death of the President General of the African National Congress. Turning on the debating issue, Honorable Deputy Chair of Chairs, we want to congratulate the Department of Education as led by Honorable M.C. Gade and HOD acting Mr. Mahlubandile Kwase for delivering 98% of the LTSM. 98% of the LTSM in all our schools in the province during the visit by members this year, 2023. We want to congratulate that work against what we saw in 2022 academic year, where we had almost 70% delivered on the LTSM. The 2023 visit to school, we saw that 98% of the LTSM was delivered to schools. We want to congratulate the Department of Education on that. Again, as the African National Congress, Honorable Chair of Chairs, Deputy Chair of Chairs, we want to amplify this point that Eastern Cape as a province, in the class of 2022 matric results, you had a high jump from 73% in 2021 to 77% in 2022, representing a 4.3% increment. Quantitatively, the Eastern Cape Department of Education as a province with 34,964 learners with bachelor passes and 24,465 learners with diploma passes. That represented 80% and 70% on mathematics and physical science, respectively, as a province, which placed the province of the Eastern Cape as number 2 on these comparative 2 learning areas as the province of the Eastern Cape. On the infrastructure, Honorable Deputy Chair of Chairs, as the province of the Eastern Cape, we want to acknowledge and understand the historical backlog on the Department of Education to deal with the infrastructure of the province. However, as the ANC, we want to applaud the effort by the Department of Education, where we have seen last year the MEC of the Education opening up schools, James Ndulula Primary School, the state of the art, with a tune of 45 million rands. We have invested 105 million in building Sunshine Special School at Kariega. We support the investment of 100 million in building the Nsizwa Senior Secondary School and Maluti Senior Secondary School, both in Alfredsburg West, respectively. As the African National Congress, we equally understand the historical backlog as it relates to the infrastructure, and we want to applaud the Department of Education by opening up 44 projects in the last financial year. 24 projects for sanitation were completed, 384 classrooms were delivered in 27 schools, 41 classrooms in special schools were delivered, and 42 classrooms for the grade R were completed. Against the prophets of doom, the Eastern Cape, in terms of the Department of Education, is turning the corner. Again, as the African National Congress, Honorable Deputy Chair of Chairs, welcome the announcement by the President of the Republic of South Africa, His Excellency President Ramaphosa, to proclaim the ECD sector from the Department of Social Development to the Department of Basic Education. Subsequently, we support the preliminary studies by the Department of Education on the state of affairs in all our ECD centers in the Eastern Cape. And we appreciate and we support the allocation of over 1 billion rand to deal with the infrastructure backlog on our ECD centers. We also want to emphasize that the department must continue with the professionalization and capacitation of the educators at this sector to make sure that they are aligned with the national norms and standards. The provision and the quality of the resources allocated to the ECD centers is a cornerstone and the foundation of the education system in South Africa. Honorable Deputy Chair of Chairs on scholar transport. As the African National Congress, we equally support the upward movement in terms of the transportation of the learners from the previous disadvantaged communities, from 80,000 learners to 108,000 learners that are benefiting in this current financial year. That upward movement represented over 80% accommodation of the learners that are accommodated on the scholar transport by the Department of Education in collaboration with the Department of Transport. However, as the African National Congress, we still press ahead to say the department must also include those learners who are not accommodated, currently accommodated on the issue of the scholar transport. On school safety, Honorable Deputy Chair of Chairs, as the African National Congress, we have identified the increasing levels of crime in our communities, and the schools becomes the soft target. We therefore support the initiative by the Department of Education to place every school in every police station in the province of the Eastern Cape. Secondly, we want to make a proposal concretely that the issue of the norms and standards for the non-teaching staff within the Department of Education must be concluded, so that every school in the province can have a security services 24 hours to make sure that we deal with the issue of school safety and vandalism in our schools. In the Nelson Mandela Metro, the majority of our schools, or MEC, we support the initiative of the fencing of our schools. And the majority of the schools in Nelson Mandela Metro, they need fencing. And therefore, as the African National Congress, we support that initiative, and we say as the department, the 2023-2024 financial year, we must see that program of fencing of all our schools continuing. On school nutrition, Honorable Deputy Chair of Chairs, as the African National Congress, we support the announcement being made by the Honorable MEC, Honorable Gade, during his policy speech of providing an additional meal to our learners. The policy speech indicates that the department will be providing breakfast meal to all our learners in the province of the Eastern Cape, meaning that we'll be providing 2 meals per day in all our Quintile 1 to Quintile 3 public schools. That is the African National Congress program of action. And as the ANC, we support that. The school nutrition, over and above the provision of food to our learners, the nutrition, the actual program has created more job opportunities as other people are employed within that program as full servers, food servers, meal
Honourable
servers,
Deputy Chair.
food controllers. On the issue of the pit toilets,
Sorry, Honorable Ndabeni. Honorable Zindi.
Enkosi Deputy Chair, ndicela ukubuza into yobana ngawuthatha na umbuzo.
Honorable Ndabeni.
no.
Thank you. Proceed, Honorable Ndabeni.
Thank you very much. On the pit toilet, Honorable Deputy Chair of Chairs, whilst we welcome the initiative by the Department of Education, Basic Education, working with the Provincial Department of Education, of allocating over 250 million to eradicate the pit toilet, this issue poses a risk and it presents a bad taste to our government. And therefore, we want to impress to the Department of Education to make sure that come the 2023-2024 financial year, we completely eradicate, working with the National Department of Basic Education. We must have war on the pit toilets and completely eradicate the pit toilets in our public schools. The school furniture program, Honorable Deputy Chair of Chairs, we welcome the announcement by the department to roll out the school furniture in all our schools. And within this context, Honorable Deputy Chair of Chairs, we appreciate the fact that more than 20 of our SMMEs will benefit in this program. Eastern Cape used to be the hub for the manufacturing of the school furniture, and we want to impress upon the Department of Education to continue to do that work. There was a time, I think around 2020, 2021, when the Eastern Cape Department of Education was able to provide furniture even to other provinces like Limpopo and Northwest. And we want to take the Department of Education back to that level where we're able to provide furniture to all our schools and be able to provide furniture even in other provinces of the country. As the African National Congress, Honorable Chair of Chairs, we therefore have seen the backlog on the issue of infrastructure, and want to impress upon, as the African National Congress, that whilst we understand the challenges emanating from the issue of the infrastructure, but want to impress upon to the Department of Education that in this current year, 2023-2024, a similar incident of 100 million being taken back, especially being taken back to Western Cape, not only to the National Treasury, but to be redistributed to other provinces. We appreciate the work that has been done, but that 100 million is too big for it to be returned back to the National Treasury. And therefore, as the African National Congress, we want to impress upon to the Department of Education to do the actual project planning, project costing, project procurement and project execution, even before the actual start of the financial year. With those comments and contributions, Honorable Deputy Chair of Chairs, as the African National Congress, we appreciate the work that is being done by the African National Congress. We want to conclude by the quote in one of the greatest revolutionaries of our time, the 20th revolutionary, President Nelson Mandela, who said, and I want to quote, on his release from Robben Island, addressing the people of South Africa for the first time in 27 years. He was standing in the gallery, in the balcony of the Western Cape Town Hall. He said, and I quote, that education is the only instrument upon which a son and a daughter of a domestic worker can become a doctor, and the son and a daughter of a mine migrant can become a mine boss. A son and a daughter of a peasant can become a president of the republic, close quote. That's Nelson Mandela addressing the country after 27 years of incarceration. And therefore, as the African National Congress, we support the report as presented by the chairperson of the committee. Thank you very much, Honorable Chair of Chairs.
Thank you, Honorable Ndabeni. Honorable M. Isikate.
Chair, Deputy Chair of Chairs, your established protocol is observed. Can you just afford me 2 or 3 minutes just to deal with the fundamentals for the attention of the House, Chair, which I feel very strongly that needed to be addressed here once and for all. I do appreciate, Chair, that there is a structural and a systemic challenge that we don't want to address. The Department of Education, just like other departments, presents policy speeches in this gathering, in this House, present APPs and operational plans in this House, and I'm then inviting a discussion, Chair, even if it is not today, that I'm beginning to make a conclusion after having received the reports of the House directed to engage with them along the lines of the APPs and operational plans, that probably there is no scientific relationship between the business plan of government and the production of the House resolutions here. Let me repeat myself. There is no relationship between the APPs and the operational plans of government and the production of the House resolutions here. And that has got serious implications in terms of the infrastructure development plan and execution plan thereof. And I'm beginning to accept now, Chair, that that's why there is always a fight between the provincial treasury and the ECDOE over the infrastructure portfolio. Because government through treasury has got B5 that we must honor. And the production of the resolutions here do not talk to P5. Let me leave it there for a discussion for another day. So I'm saying it's a matter that the leadership must be able to look into and be able to see how best can we deal with it when it comes to observation of the fiscus that we must guard jealously, Chair. On the issues raised by the committee, I think we agree fundamentally with them, Chair, and it's a matter of how best do we develop a plan to deal with them, but let's come back to the pit latrines concept. I'm not sure whether do we understand what pit latrines means. Because as I'm standing here, government is awarding a tender on pit latrines in this country. And I can assure you there is a village that is celebrating the coming of the pit latrines. I'm bringing this discussion because this country will never resolve the pit latrines. Let's not fool ourselves. We'll never resolve the pit latrines up until we make an alignment between the what you call the bulk infrastructure system and the alignment of the production of the sanitation program, whether human settlements or rural development and education. Just to put matters into proper perspective, if DPE says he can correct and eradicate pit latrines where that sewage is going to be deposited to, where is that sewage going to be deposited to and how? And I'm therefore saying there is a need of a proper discussion in terms of alignment of policies and alignment of budget and alignment of thinking, so that we can be able to know what kind of animal are we talking about here. It's quite a bit strange, Chair, that lawmakers may not understand their very same laws. And I think I must raise it here. Honorable Farfin, Honorable Van Vieren, you are making a joke of the law of this country around the issue of Mbizana and the Luna case, which has got a court order declaration. And you are seated here as a lawmaker. The late MEC, Honorable Chair of Chairs, instructed all of us to go back to that case via the court order and the court instructed the family to resume that body back out for two reasons. I said yesterday we must learn to wait for the investigations, and I repeat it here. When that body has to be resumed, the reps in the court of law vanished. And then there comes a lawsuit of 10 million. And that 10 million does not have any rep in the court of law when we were there in Namtata. And the court has to declare against the complaint that was presented there. And I'm then saying, as lawmakers, we must be very careful and not masquerade Tagarism disguised as oversight. We must be able to see the differences as we deal with our own work of oversighting the functions of the levers of government, Chairperson. I think I will have to end on that one on there so that we don't waste your time.
Sorry, Honorable MEC. Honorable Van Vieren.
Honorable Deputy Chair, I take offense that the MEC said I made a joke about the Luna case. Can we have an extract from Hansard to see whether I have made a joke?
Noted.
I have not made a joke, and I take exception to that.
Noted. Proceed, MEC.
No thanks, Chair. Again, Chair, I wanted to applaud the Committee on Education for the sterling work that they have done. It is a fact, Chair, that without a proper oversight, that department wouldn't be where it is now. Part of what this committee has been able to master is an art of taking people from positions of comfort into positions of discomfort for the benefit of the people of this province. This committee has been able to do that, hence I'm saying it's a matter that we must all applaud to it and applaud to this House for that particular success in the history of this province. Again, Chair, we were saying yesterday, our systems are gelling and our systems are beginning to mature. And hence we were arguing yesterday that between grade 1 and grade 9, we are at 92.3% performance now. And you can attribute that to the oversight of this particular House. Because remember, there was a stage, Chairperson, where the foundation phase and GETC band in the province was a bit sluggish and not performing to the standard required. And if therefore we are able to maintain that performance in the context of what is currently happening, then it means we have a future in terms of the province performance, which we must all celebrate and be able to deal with them. Yes, Chairperson, we have been trying to make sure that in terms of the learner support material and the proceeds thereof, we must be able to put more emphasis, yes, of course, into the core business of the sector in the context of ensuring that learners does get books. But can I bring another discussion, Honorable Chief Whip? Because this is the leadership, the last detachment in the province that is seated here. We can't be made to celebrate, for example, I'm just making an example. We can't be made to celebrate the reintroduction of the Mzimvubu Dam without a deeper thinking and understanding what are the economic benefits of the province out of that. Firstly, who's going to reconstruct the dam? From where? So that you don't unconsciously make certain people somewhere undermine the national development plan. And you have got leaders that are chasing other leaders, either for the benefit of themselves, not for the benefit of this country. And I'm then saying, if we have got a multi-billion project of building Mzimvubu Dam, for example, what are the spin-offs economically for this province? And that should be clearly defined from a construction point of view, not in terms of the proceeds of the water and other benefits that are going to come, so that this clever black kind of an arrangement is resolved once and for all. Is resolved once and for all. So the issue again in this learner support material is not just about providing books. It's about whether the 800 million budget of the LTSM, in the value chain of it, does the people of this province benefit or not? And that's the question that we must all answer here. We can't be made to be people that are transporting cardboards, carrying books. The last leg of the value chain in that particular transaction. If you go down and detail it, what percentage is the distribution of books in the province as against the entire budget of
4 minutes left.
So I'm saying, Chair, we are a bigger department here that takes 45% of the provincial government spares. And therefore, the economic landscape and change of the province depends on the school of thought, both ideologically and politically, of those that lead the bigger departments. Hence, I'm then saying, for me, it's not just about building schools, but what then becomes the economic spin-off of building schools? So that you don't render a 100 million school infrastructure, Honorable Chair, that you cannot see in the villages in this province. You just celebrate this infrastructure and slaughter, Honorable Zibula, a cow for 100 million that you can't see in the villages. So I'm saying we need to find each other, align mentality, begin to understand what should be done here, how to do it, and when. And hence I'm saying, part of the assignment that we have is to make sure that the people of the province benefit, either as SMEs or as conglomerates that are in the space of the business in dealing with the fundamental infrastructure backlogs that we have. Lastly, Chair, I would want also to conclude on the debate of the ICT.
Olo, Chair.
Chair.
Honorable Zindi.
Enkosi Chair. No besicela nje uMEC abe ngathi uyajongana ngapha ngakuthi.
Proceed, MEC.
Lastly, Chair, is on the ICT, Lastly, Chair, is on the ICT infrastructure and
Don't worry, MEC, ungajongana kwecala wena because bakho bonke nangapha.
Lastly, Chair, is on the ICT services and the transformation thereof. Last month, we were launching a smart class in Richard Vaga in Timbaza. And the attempt we were making was to digitalize the technical schools in the province. Here the debate that I'm raising. You are not going to have that infrastructure of mechanical work in the form of the ICT.
1
and
minute
sti-
left,
and
1 minute
still,
left.
And still have workshops, Honorable Twab. There is a contrast there. The reintroduction of the ICT infrastructure in education, either in the vocational stream in education, might phase out the so-called natural infrastructure, physical appearances in the form of buildings. Ndithetha ke le nto kuba ndiyijongile ngoyipresent wayo pha. Xa bekwazi uyiqhaqha le moto bayi-assemblishe kule machine, why must we have a workshop? From a physical point of view. So I'm then saying, those are areas that the leadership we must be able to contend with and be able to align our strategic thinking and also our plans as government and resolve the unresolved issues of the province. We want to support the report, Chair, and commit that we are going to work around the clock in ensuring that at least yesterday is not similar today, and it can't be similar with tomorrow, Chair. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Can we then proceed to draft a resolution on mental health crisis, Honorable Fihlani? Sorry, honorable members. Ndiyaqhuba. Before we proceed, you'll all remember that the Deputy Speaker reminded us that in terms of Rule 109, read with Rule 78, subsection 4, the House deferred the adoption of motions without notices, as well as the committee reports debated. It has now been confirmed we have a quorum. Therefore, I move for, in fact, I request the House to adopt the motion without notice on Easter weekend road safety, the motion without notice on climate change, motion without notice on mineral and gas exploration, motion without notice on commemoration of TB month. Then also, can we adopt the report and debates in respect of the Portfolio Committee on Transport, oversight visits, and lastly, the report of the Portfolio Committee on Education on School Visits? Any objections? Okay. Secretary, can you come then and read the next order of the day?
Draft resolution by Ms. K. Fihlani on mental health.
Order. Ningathanivanga. Proceed, Honorable Fihlani.
Yilena ndicofa lindala kaloku hey uxolo hayi ndiraf way yam honorable Deputy Chair of Chairs, we're saying mental illness is a global concern that affects millions of people every day. In South Africa, Eastern Cape has been particularly hard hit by this crisis, with limited resources available for effective treatment and care. Mental health has long been neglected as an aspect of healthcare in South Africa. According to statistics,
Chair.
the World Health Organization,
Chairperson, sorry, Deputy Chair of Chairs.
1 in 4
Sorry,
people globally.
Honorable Fihlani.
Bendicela Honorable Zinti akhulule izibhekisa nike Honorable Fihlani because akaboni because Deputy Chair of Chairs.
Icikile ngoku.
Honorable members, we don't have time. Can
All
we be serious, please?
I was saying 1 in 4 people globally will experience a mental health condition at some point in their lives. In South Africa specifically, it is estimated that up to 30% of the population suffer from common mental disorders such as depression and anxiety. Themba kuba niyayazi elo gama le depression and anxiety. That's something that affects majority of us. Of us. Yeah. The impact of poor mental health on individuals, families, and communities cannot be overstated. It affects productivity, social relationships, physical health outcomes, and overall quality of life. Therefore, it is imperative that we prioritize mental health care services and ensure that they are accessible to all who need them. So, mental health affects all of us, and we must normalize taking care of our mental health, in particular males who, out of stigma, resort to alcohol and drug usage or violence. We must normalize a culture of openly discussing the state of our mental health and seeking help in time. It must stress suffering from mental health does not mean the person is mad or be treated as such. If we do not end the stigma against mental health as a country, we stand to lose more of our loved ones. The collaboration between the Department of Social Development and the Department of Health provides an opportunity for us to address this issue head-on. By combining our efforts, we can increase access to the mental health services and improve outcomes for the for those struggling with mental illness. The Department of Social Development's expertise in social work, counseling, and community mobilization complements the medical expertise provided by the Department of Health. The combined effort can lead to an integrated approach to mental health and addresses both medical and social ills. Lansebenziswano ke ibike yabonakala nakwezi policy speech bezibekwa apha ke Honorable Deputy Chair of Chairs. If that can, some of the resources Honorable Mvoko angancuma pha kwa Treasury xa kusetyenziswana kwezi ngxaki esizifumanayo, ingakumbi related with this mental health, because we cannot be exonerated, even members and officials. You can't say low mental disorder, which is depression or anxiety. You cannot say you can never get it. Furthermore, such a collaboration can ensure that there is no duplication of wastage or of resources. As both departments work together on programs aimed at improving service delivery within existing budget and funding constraints experienced by the province. As per the World Health Organization's report published in 2021, open quote, collaboration between various sectors, including civil society organizations, should be strengthened through better coordination mechanisms. Sivali quote, World Health Organization leyo mamuzinto. Thus, working collaboratively within existing funding constraints can maximize resources which make sense economically while achieving more than when we are working in silos. Honorable Deputy Chair of Chairs, in partnership, this partnership has a lot of potential and can showcase how working together can reduce stigma around mental health issues and improve access of care through community-based intervention programs. I urge all people of the Eastern Cape to support this collaborative initiative between Eastern Cape Department of Social Development and the Eastern Cape Department of Health. By working together, we can make a significant strides towards addressing the mental health crisis in our province and even abroad. Thank you. I so move, Honorable Chair of Chairs.
Thank you, Honorable Fihlani. The matter is now open for debate. Honorable Sibonda. Let me also acknowledge the presence of Mr. Charlie, a former acting district director, Yasejoka, Bikwa Department of Health.
Let me greet the Honorable Deputy Chair of Chairs, the MECs, the members of the legislature, guests in the gallery, staff. Honorable Deputy Chair of Chairs,
The COVID-19 pandemic that took the world by storm was a pandemic so great and so awful that it impacted all families, communities, towns, and cities across the world. The trail of devastation left that minuscule coronavirus so tiny and yet so deadly was beyond our worst imaginings. Life as we know it has changed irrevocably. But, Madam Deputy Chair of Chairs, the aftermath of COVID-19 revealed something equally sinister, yet another global pandemic. This one is slow, quiet, largely unseen, very seldom spoken about, but just as deadly as COVID. Deputy Chair of Chairs, this is a global pandemic of mental illness. Mental illness is perhaps one of the most misunderstood illnesses in the world because it takes so many different forms. For some, it is a constant state of worry or anxiety, always fearing what is to come. For others, it is a dark place of hopelessness that simply cannot be shaken. For others, it is schizophrenia, multiple personalities which can change for no reason at all. And for some, it means living in a world that does not exist, speaking to people that were not there, and experiencing realities that we cannot share. Honorable Deputy Chair of Chairs, the world has finally woken up to the fact that this disease is huge, and it requires our collective effort to understand it better so that we can develop a range of strategies to treat mental health patients and guide them on their road to recovery. Because the reality is that many forms of this disease are easily curable. I therefore want to thank my colleague, Honorable Fihlani, for putting this motion to the House. The more we speak about this issue, the more we raise awareness, and a heightened awareness will undoubtedly lead to a desire to develop smart strategies for dealing with this scourge. However, Honorable Deputy Chair of Chairs, as they say in Afrikaans, there is vlieg in the south. There is a fly in the ointment. Khona mpukane masi. And it is a big and very ugly fly. The fly is called drug and substance abuse. Drug and alcohol abuse is rife among our young people. This scourge has a grip on our children, on our grandchildren, on our sisters and our brothers, which seems to be unbreakable. And this scourge is not a social development or health issue. It is a societal issue. This scourge has resulted in an explosion of drug and alcohol-related mental illness that has inundated both our social development and our health departments to the point that they simply cannot cope. This scourge has flourished because we, as the people, as the government, have failed our youth. We have failed to pay attention or take any action when the tavern owners allow underage drinkers into their premises. Budget for law enforcement across several departments gets slashed year after year because apparently it is more important to create arbitrary posts like personal assistants who earn a fortune while they paint their false nails. We have failed to pay attention when policemen don't arrest drug lords and drug dealers. They say they need to get information from them, while the reality is that the drug lords are paying huge bribes to the cops who are living way beyond their means. A simple lifestyle audit would prove me right. We have failed to pay our attention when our children spend hours of their day glued to a cyber life on their devices, where certain colors, certain shape, certain religions, or certain sexual orientations are so severely bullied that our children are scared for life. Still, they are addicted to their devices and cannot escape to reality. We have failed to pay attention in our institutions of learning where we can see children and young adults struggling emotionally, but we do not engage them because we don't want to make it our problem. We are the adults here. We have failed to, why have we fail to pay attention? Why are drug lords driving around freely in fancy cars while our children suffer? Why are policemen turning a blind eye instead of standing up and saying enough is enough? Why are our parents and grandparents not setting boundaries for their children regarding what they watch on their phones and how long they stare at them? Why are our teachers not intervening when they see bullying and shaming in the corridors? And why are our traditional leaders and headmen not advocating forcefully to protect their communities against this scourge? This scourge of mental illness issues amongst our youth will only go away when we address causes of their problems, not the symptoms. A whole societal approach is needed if we want to win this war. We cannot leave it to the Department of Health and Social Development only. Honorable Deputy Chair of Chairs, I would love to propose a few amendments to the motion as put by Honorable Fihlani, and they are as follows. That the House resolves that the Department of Health and Social Development work together with all relevant sister departments to understand the various mental illness challenges facing our youth and society at large, and that the understanding is applied to inform and conceptualize suitable and holistic interventions that will address youth challenges as their psychosocial needs and their unique context to save and safeguard the future of our nation. 2, that government works hard to create a program that is specifically tailored to cater to the needs of the mentally ill, including facilities for rehabilitation from drug and substance abuse. 3, that an interdepartmental committee be formed to update the House on time-bound plans to address the crisis. I thank you, Honorable Deputy Chair of Chairs.
Honorable Mbonyana.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Chair of Chairs. Greetings to you. It feels good to salute to one of our own, Joe Kabia. Honorable Deputy Chair of Chairs, Honorable Acting Premier, Honorable members of the Executive, amalungu onke endlu wisomthetho, Honorable Chief Whip of the Majority Party, our esteemed guest and fellow South Africans, I greet you all. Honorable Deputy Chair of Chairs, on the motion tabled for social development regarding mental health, we as African National Congress accept the motion. Honorable Deputy Chair of Chairs and honorable members, mental disorder refers to a wide range of mental health conditions that affect your mood, thinking and behavior. That includes depression, anxiety disorders, autism, bipolar, eating disorders, and addictive behaviors, because they all affect the same areas of the brain. It becomes very easy for someone to dismiss the above mentioned examples as they do not fit into the traditional category of sicknesses, wherein they are seen rather than felt. This is why, honorable members, often at times, a person who suffers from mental illness can easily be dismissed, as mental health is not regarded as crucial in the society we live in, more especially since it's not easily recognizable. Honorable Deputy Chair of Chairs, Honorable Fihlani, through you, Deputy Chair of Chairs, the most important thing that we need to deal with around this issue is a myth, misconception, and stigma around mental illness, as it makes people feel uncomfortable and embarrassed, like it's a personal failure, selfishness, an excuse or a sign of a weakness. Talking about mental illness is a taboo in our communities and highly stigmatized, and no one wants to talk about it. As a result, majority abantu bakuthi are silenced by the negative misconception and disgrace that is associated with mental disorder. Honorable Deputy Chair of Chairs and honorable members, mental illness is just like any other physical illness. We need to treat it as such. I was reading a post, honorable members, on Facebook earlier on by Ulwando Ngulube, and I quote, "People don't die from suicide, they die from sadness. There's nothing more painful and depressing than having it all, but still feel sad," close quote. Depression, honorable members, is darkness, fear, worthlessness, pain, and deep thoughts of death and suicide. You can't tell a depression by looking at physical appearance, because at times, those who wear the brightest smiles are the ones that are dying inside. So because you can't see it, it does not necessarily mean that it's not there. We need to do more awareness campaigns and end the negative misconception around mental illness. Let us open up discussions around this issue kwindawo zonke ezinabantu. Let us learn to be observant, to listen attentively, and lay a good foundation for someone to open up with us. Mental illness is not the only sickness which was stigmatized, honorable members. You will remember with HIV and AIDS, TB, and many other illnesses, they were stigmatized too, until kufike abantu kwakuthiwa zi-advocacies for HIV and AIDS, and they stood up and aggressively spoke out and expanded awareness around HIV and AIDS. It is therefore imperative that we strengthen our communications just like we did with other sicknesses as mentioned above, because reducing stigma will save more lives. Honorable Deputy Chair of Chairs, the Department of Social Development, through professional social workers, is confronted by cases of mentally ill amongst the social workers' general caseload year after year. The involvement of social workers in the field of mental health is a very historical, dating as far back as the 19th century. Social workers in the Department of Social Development have always taken an approach of viewing the mental ill and their problems in relation to multiple contexts in which problems occur, and then pursue interventions that focuses on client socio-economic and political environment, as well as psychological and interpersonal domains. The department works with all related disciplines, particularly the behavioral science professions, using the psychotherapy as a significant method of intervention. This is a face-to-face professional relationship to promote awareness, change, growth, and improve psychological functioning in individuals, families, and communities. This is meant to address and prevent psychosocial dysfunctioning, impairment, including emotional and mental disorders. The South African Mental Health Care number 17 of 2002 states that mental health care practitioners is a psychiatrist, registered medical practitioner, a nurse, occupational therapist, psychologist, or social workers who have been trained to provide prescribed mental health care, treatment, and rehabilitation services. The limitation confronting the Department of Social Development, honorable members, is that it has employed a high number of generically trained social workers, more than the clinically trained social workers, who have the necessary competencies and capacities to focus on psychotherapy. However, even the generically trained social workers can use integrated methods and interventions that focus on the family perspective to bring about change that benefit the human system functioning. This is all tailored and specially focused to address the needs of the mentally ill. The department is establishing partnership with the Institution of Higher Learning in the Eastern Cape through the Nelson Mandela University to roll out psychosocial support programs for trauma support and grief counseling, to orientate and equip social workers with an updated models to address the psychosocial needs of families and communities in distress. UMaTAIC
once said, and I quote, "Mental health problems don't define who you are. They are something you experience. You walk in the rain, but you are not the rain." Close quote. The African National Congress, honorable members, support and accept the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Mbonyana. Honorable MEC Konsua.
Good afternoon to you, Honorable Deputy Chair of Chairs, the Deputy Speaker, the Chief Whip and the Deputy Chief Whip, the honorable members in the House, the fellow members of the Executive Committee, good afternoon. Mandibulise ngalemva kwedinara. First, let us welcome the motion by Honorable Fihlan, the Deputy Chief Whip, as it talks to an important health aspect. Mental health. Mental health is a priority for the African National Congress government. It is important noting that mental health is not only a departmental issue, but a societal issue. We are compelled to work with sister departments, the likes of social development, South African Police Services, the Department of Justice, and decisively manage and control the challenges of mental health users roaming aimlessly on the streets whilst being sensitive to the provisions of the Mental Health Care Act number 17 of 2002. As articulated in the budget speech on Tuesday, the department is hard at work in engaging the stakeholders to promote community residential care and daycare services throughout the province. Community-based rehabilitation centers will be established throughout the districts in strategic period ahead as we work to establish additional halfway houses around the province. These halfway houses prepare patients for integration back into their communities. We must not shy away from the fact that some mental health challenges are as a result of substance abuse. This is why we are continuously calling on communities, and particularly the youth and the future of this nation, not to abuse alcohol as they do currently. As such, our service platforms have been strengthened by the employment of about 31 registered counselors across the districts. These are highly trained officials holding the Bachelor of Psychology degree. These registered counselors will chiefly focus on identifying the burden of this disease in communities and design specific programs and projects in collaboration with other relevant professionals to address the identified health problems at the community level. Though we are concerned about the number of people with mental health challenges, we are also happy that more and more people are seeking medical help in order to manage or deal with the different mental health challenges. There were at least 1 million or 1.1 million total visits to primary health care facilities for just mental health between April 2019 and December 2022. Of these, 122,400 were people aged between 18 years and older. These are either furthering their studies in institutions of higher learning or already working. So, lulo olufumaneka kakhulu kwela cala. We did highlight our successes and plans for mental health services when the MEC tabled the budget and policy speech for 23-24 financial year. These include the following. The department spent 29 million in upgrading the state-of-the-art bedded institution for child and adolescent unit in Fort England last year. The Eastern Cape side of the province will be increasing its mental health beds by adding up 33 beds, that of the state-of-the-art in St. Barnabas Hospital in Libode, and a total of 12 million or 12.7 million. This facility will be officially opened in October this financial year, 23-24. Doranginza Mental Health Unit Infrastructure Concept report for improvements for an existing building to accommodate a 72-hour observation unit has also been completed. So the total cost of construction will be 30 million plus. The Cecilia Makiwane Hospital Psychiatric 72-hour observation unit with 19 beds. The concept has feasibility stages are completed. So the total cost of the project when complete will be 8 million. Then lastly, the Mthatha Mental Health Unit that had been dilapidated for some time is currently under renovations, and a total of 4.9 million has been spent there. Regarding the Ombudsman recommendations on the tower infrastructure renovations, the renovation of the seclusion rooms has been completed. So the consultants are in advance now, an advanced stage of the infrastructure planning. And we will, as the department, be ready to deliver the complete renovations and facing the tower hospitals, Leise Bofolo or Remaqom, in this financial year to the total cost of 17 million. The department continues to make and increase investment in mental health and psychological support services as the department moves to ensure the integration of these programs within the primary health care, education, and child protection systems, including community services and structures. So this is the problem for all the communities of the Eastern Cape. By saying so, I wish to thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Honorable MEC Consuwe. I put the draft resolution. Any objections? Secretary, can you read the second subject matter for
Deputy Chair of
discussion?
Chairs. Sorry, Deputy Chair of Chairs, but
Okay.
there is no quorum at the moment in the House.
We do have a quorum.
Do we have a quorum?
Yeah. Honorable Bond.
Thank you, Deputy Chair of Chairs. The DA proposed an amendment to the motion, and you did not test or put it to the House.
I can't hear you.
The proposed amendment that I had put on the motion, you did not put it to the House.
Honorable Fihlani. Yes, that's my understanding. Thank you. Can we then proceed? Secretary, can you read? Are these two members, Bebe Pumile, are they back? Naba, one, Pagamisi Sandla, Bakbon, Banom, Yibung Banom. 1, 2, is Honorable Dlilanga and MEC. Sicela ningamane niphuma because immediately after the debate, we must adopt sine quorum. Please. Thank you.
Otherwise, Chikunyango, Deputy Chair of
Can we? I put the draft resolution again. Now that you are back. Yes.
Read.
Any objections? Thank you.
It's your amendment.
Secretary, can you read the second subject matter for discussion?
We don't have prefects here.
By Mr. JPJ Botcha, non-funding of non-profit organizations by the Department of Social Development.
Honorable Botha.
Is there a quorum, Porter? Porter. they're both.
Order, honorable members.
Chair of Chairs, all protocol observed. The mission of the Department of Social Development is to enable the poor and the vulnerable and the excluded within the Eastern Cape Province to secure a better life for themselves. And this they will do in partnership with the Department of Social Development. To achieve the above, government has partnered with various non-profit organizations to realize people's rights for a better life. It is a fact that in South Africa, the government relies significantly on NPOs to deliver services in various policy fields to address socio-economic problems in our communities. The services that these NPOs provide in various policy fields form part of South Africa's framework to achieve its long-term developmental goals. In policy statements and documents at the national, provincial and municipal levels of government, organizations in the NPO sector are recognized as stakeholders and essential partners. Even though NPOs are viewed as private organizations, their role in delivering services place them in a broader public and social policy space. In many countries, the origins of NPOs can be traced back to efforts from individuals and groups that provided aid and mutual assistance to meet the needs of people within their communities. Whilst governments all over the world acknowledge the important role the NPO sector plays, governments must also treat NPOs fairly in all aspects. My debate today is premised on this, the fairness of DSD's conduct when funding cuts are necessitated. The administration must act fairly and observe the principles of natural justice. Sadly, this does not seem to be the case for the past couple of years. Whilst DSD relies on NPOs to deliver services on its behalf to the people of this province, and while stringent conditions are set for NPOs to secure funding, the same standards do not seem to be applied to the department. Over the recent years, I have been inundated with calls from NPOs across the province who have battled with the funding transpayments, the late conclusion of service level agreements, and out of the blue funding cuts. Honourable Chair of Chairs, a media report from Ground Up in 2020, which appeared in News 24, puts the impact that late payments and funding cuts have on NPOs in perspective. And I read, headline, old age homes on the brink of collapse as provincial government cuts funding. I continue with the content. Hundreds of NPO organizations in the Eastern Cape that perform social work on behalf of the government have not been paid their subsidies. The Alwynhof Old Age Home in the Karoo town of Aberdeen in the Eastern Cape is one of hundreds across the province which have not received their usual subsidy from the government. The home, which looks after 35 elderly people, has run out of money and may soon be unable to buy food for the people in their care. With no money from the Eastern Cape Department of Social Development, for 4 months, the home has all but used up its savings and investments as according to the Act. The report paints a picture of a social care system on the brink of collapse. The report goes on in this article to say that 103 organizations that were willing to be named in the report, there is at least an extra 100 more that are in the same situation. These include children's homes, women's shelters, and old age homes. This kind of negative publicity is not what we intend to have in the province. The reality is that the majority of these NPOs are reliant on funding from state as well as donors from the private sector to do their work. The stringent conditions attached to this type of funding requires the NPO to account for every cent allocated, which means when funds are promised, they are allocated to programs to ensure that funds are spent within time frames given so that the relevant reports can be produced for the Department of Social Development. These organizations are intrinsic in nature. Their mission is to serve the people of their communities, not to make a profit. So it is hardly surprising that the majority of NPOs do not have significant cash reserves that they can draw upon if funds are late or cut. The result is that when funds are late, it immediately impacts on the NPO's ability to deliver services. When funds are cut, it directly impacts on programs that now go unfunded. When DSD cuts funding to NPOs, it is taking critical services away from our people. To put it in simple terms, DSD's funding cuts takes away food from the hungry. It takes shelter away from the elderly. It leaves abused women and children without care. It is with the above in mind that fairness in individual cases and fairness in administration action affecting NPOs comes to mind. With this in mind, I want to ask who determines how many and which NPOs' fundings gets cut by the department? Or is it a standardized cut across all NPOs? And what role does the Portfolio Committee play in this process? Budget cuts can be challenging for government, yes, but they are a practical management strategy that requires political and administrative consensus in program cuts. It is also requires that the news be conveyed to the NPOs that are affected in a process of transparency and procedural fairness. Where funding cuts are likely, district officers of DSD should be engaging the affected NPOs well in advance with at least 3 months written prior warning of funding cuts. The department must explain the reasons for the budget cuts, provide clear, simple and concise facts about the cuts, and pick the most suitable communication channel to deliver news to NPOs well in advance in order to avoid negative media publicity. The department must conduct an audit on how many people will lose access to social welfare services delivered by NPOs per program if funding to these NPOs is reduced or removed. With proper engagement between stakeholders, the negative impacts that the loss of funding has can be lessened. Interventions can be made to help organizations streamline their spending to do more with less. And where this is not possible, other solutions need to be put in place. But we cannot leave NPOs hanging in the air without any finances or communication. The department must produce an information plan of where and how these services that have been cut will be made available elsewhere to the current service users. In closing, the Portfolio Committee of Social Development must be briefed beforehand on budget cuts in terms of selected NPOs in each program, with reasons substantiating why the program and that specific NPO has been selected. This will ensure political oversight, insight, and political backing with a dignified narrative to NPO service users and their service users and the community. It is of vital importance that the Portfolio Committee is briefed beforehand of any possible budget cuts. I thank you.
The matter is now open for debate. Honorable Van Vuren.
Thank you, Deputy Chair of Chairs. I've watched my step, yeah. Deputy Chair of Chairs, I humbly greet and welcome everyone here today. My presentation or debate here today is in support of the draft resolution brought by Honorable Botha on the non-funding of non-profit organizations by the Department of Social Development. I do believe the Honorable MEC is aware of this. We've been on numerous oversights. I quote the following from various resources. For every 100 people aged between the ages of 15 to 64 in the Eastern Cape, almost 65% of people have no income, that age group. More than 65% of persons are living below the food poverty line, that is 663 Rand in 2022, and the Eastern Cape has the second highest percent per person classified as the poorest in South Africa. Using the lower bound poverty line, that is 945 in 2022, and the upper bound poverty line, 1,417 in 2022, the province has the second highest proportion of people at this level of poverty. Dis 'n baie arme provinsie. It's a poor province. More than 7 out of 10 children in the Eastern Cape province, almost 68.1%, are identified as multidimensionally poor, according to the report on child poverty in South Africa released by Statistics South Africa. It is no secret that the Department of Social Development is plagued with a lack of tools of trade that impedes officials and social workers from being able to deliver much needed social welfare services to the residents of this province. No tools of trade, very little. We are also very aware that budget cuts to departments have been detrimental to service delivery. As I move on, I just want to say the following. I don't want the ANC to display a callous indifference to the non-funding of non-profit organizations. We have to have a sympathetic empathy towards our people suffering. Have a pathos moment. The Department of Social Development, now more than ever before, has become crucial in the well-being of the people of the Eastern Cape, our people. It looks like me, and looks like on the other side. Due to the rising food costs, there are more people than ever before battling to survive as they are unemployed, feel hopeless, and need assistance from this government to merely survive on a day-to-day basis. Hulle is honger daar buitekant. As a result of the lack of funds and the inability of the department to employ more social workers to deliver critical services, the department has become reliant on the social services offered by NPOs in this province. NPOs, Honorable MEC, plays an important role to serve our people. Hulle is honger. As at September 22, I don't have to translate that, you understand. Hulle is honger. As at September 2023, and for 2022-23 financial year, in the Amatola district, I want us to listen here, in the Amatola district, 123 NPOs were not funded due to lack of funds. In the Chris Hani district, 124 NPOs were not funded due to a lack of funds. That's in 2020, that's it, as of September 2022. In Sarah Bartman, 16 NPOs were not funded mainly due to budget constraints. In OR Tambo, 43 organizations were not funded due to budget constraints. In Nelson Mandela Metro, 35 NPOs lost their funding. What are we doing in not funding our NPOs? It's heart-wrenching. Lovely word. It's heart-wrenching. Ek pik 'n traan vir daardie NPOs. This is a crisis indeed. If we do not fund our NPOs, it is a crisis. It doesn't matter what we say. The Social Development Department cannot work without NPOs. And if we do not fund NPOs, what is going to happen to our people? Yes, it's our people out there that looks like me and looks like on the other side. Not only were these organizations not able to render critical services to their previous clients, but of greater concern is where these people in dire need turn to for the delivery of critical services. They normally turn to NPOs, but NPOs are not funded. Let me remind you of what I said earlier. Department of Social Development does not have the staff, the capacity, the tools of trade, or funds to deliver these services. They do not have it. Maak nie saak of julle my skeef aankykie, they do not have it. That is why there are thousands of NPOs who, as an extension of the Department of Social Development, deliver these services. NPOs, Honorable MEC, NPOs. So I ask you, where does a destitute person in outer-lying rural community with no job, no transport, no money go for critical social services? Nowhere. There's no NPOs in the areas. Is the department just turning a blind eye because they have no other options in providing these services? The situation created by the ruling ANC government has become unbearable for most South Africans, especially those who are the hardest hit, the poor and the vulnerable. Ek pak 'n traan. If funding for NPOs has been consistently cut year on year, and the province is losing these services being rendered by NPOs to the destitute, is the department, with its lack of resources, presence of vacancies, picking up the slack and providing these services? That is a multi-billion-dollar question. Without the NPOs, are they delivering these services? I don't think so. If the national and provincial government, along with the departments, cannot find and implement an appropriate solution to lessen the blow to the destitute end user, you must at least do the right thing and notify these organizations at least 3 months in advance if their funding will be cut. Inform these NPOs that they are not going to get any more money, that their services are not needed. Department of Social Development can do it all on their own. Or even more important, is there a contingency plan? Of even more importance is that a contingency plan is produced and executed to ensure that the lost services from these NPOs who will no longer be able to operate are still provided by the department. It is not a difficult task, and it is the right thing to do. I've got a soft spot for Department of Social Development. Let us help our people. They struggle out there. We're living a good life, but not our people out there. I want to ask a hypothetical question to the Premier in absentia and all the MECs here today. How hard have you fought for the people of this province, whose survival and well-being are dependent on you? Are you still fighting for them? How hard have you fought your own national government to ensure that you are provided with resources you need to provide services to one of the poorest and most poverty-stricken province in this country? Our NPOs are a critical part of building our people to become sustainable and to provide services that the Provincial Department of Social Development does not provide from its own offices. In conclusion, Honourable Deputy Chair of Chairs, the people of this province have suffered long enough under the rule of the ANC. Do the right thing and at least let NPOs know in advance that you no longer need their services and that you, as the Department of Social Development, will provide these services to them. Please do not let them suffer. We have suffered enough. It is time for change, and that change should come now. I thank you, Deputy Chair of Chairs.
Thank you, Honorable Van Vuren. Honorable Kotoi.
Honorable Deputy Chair of Chairs, amalungu ondliwe wesomthetho ase-Eastern Cape, indwendwe zethu abantu base-Eastern Cape, umbutho we-Economic Freedom Fighters ozawulawula, abantwana bethongo masithi Camagu, in the Portfolio Committee report of 2022, it was noted that the 2022-2023 financial year budget allocation for the Department of Social Development had decreased by 4.7%. This would have a ripple effect of the department to fulfill its obligations. It is a fact that the province has a serious shortage of social workers and other categories of employees who perform critical services. Simvile ke u-MEC esithi by 200 abazayo silindile gonyawo lonwabu. Thus, when it comes to developing a recruitment plan, one would expect the department to prioritize the critical services like social workers. This in turn would imply that when prioritizing the critical positions in the department, a serious effort would be made to ensure that the critical tools like e-laptops, vehicles would be a top priority in order to ensure that the employees are able to perform their duties effectively. The EFF would like to find out if, as per the recommendations of the committee last year, the department has adopted a recruitment plan which prioritizes the critical skills. The sanitary dignity project also experienced serious challenges due to the appointment of service providers who lacked the necessary capacity to deliver. This resulted in a 11.9 million being underspent. Given the importance of this project, has the department rectified that situation through consequence management in respect of the officials who were responsible for the appointment of service providers? Is there any report that can be submitted to this House in respect of that consequent process management? Yiyo ke lento EFF bonke o public representative bayo bayikhathaleleyo lento kuthiwa i-dignity yomntana omuntu omnyama sisisa i-sanitary towels ezikolweni. Sinezikolo esizi-adoptileyo uba sisise i-sanitary towels. One of the national priorities is the development of women. This implies that when it comes to budgeting, the department will prioritize the development of women. However, opposite occurs in the province, in that the budget for women development decreases year after year. This disturbing trend was noted in last year's Portfolio Committee report. This means that the department is in a way undermining a national priority. For the current year, does the department have a plan to reverse this disturbing trend, which in reality inhibits the development of women? The Eastern Cape province is a province with a massive challenge when it comes to poor and less privileged. Social distress relief programs are critical. Due to tender processes, an amount of 67.7 million had to be surrendered, with the result that about 885,714 beneficiaries could not receive their food parcels. For the current year, is there any plan on the table to prevent this from happening again? A recommendation was made to the effect that the Special Investigating Unit be brought in to investigate, among other things, the cancer of non-underspending as well as underspending in the department. This was in a view of importance of consequence management. Is there any feedback or on how far that process of involving SIU has gone? All the challenges have a huge direct effect on the poor people in the rural areas. They are unable to access some forms of social assistance. A society is mostly judged by extent to which it looks after the poor. This was stated by the famous Mahatma Gandhi when he said, I quote, "The true measure of any society can be found in how it treats its most vulnerable members," closed quote. It is our submission that the poorest in the province are seriously affected by the challenges that department has. This in turn means that Section 27, subsection 1C of the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa, which provides that everyone has the right to access to social security, including they are unable to support themselves and the dependents appropriate social assistance. Ngako ke bantu base Eastern Cape ithi EFF lithemba lenu lokugqibela yiyo nenoyiphatha kakuhle le department ibakhathalele abantu abakwi rural areas. Asiva kuthethwa kakhulu apha ngabantu abahlala kwi rural areas, ngabona bantu bangafumaniyo inkxaso efanelekileyo kubo. Enkosi.
Honorable Luana. Sorry, Honorable Zinti. Sorry.
Sevenza Deputy Chair of Chairs. Honorable Deputy Chair of Chairs, the main aim of ECDSD is to transform our society by building conscious and capable citizens through the provision of integrated social development services with families and the core of social change. The main aspect of social development is about improving the well-being of every individual in society so that they can reach their full potential. It requires the removal of barriers so that all citizens can journey towards their dreams with confidence and dignity. Honorable Deputy Chair of Chairs, how do you expect the department to function effectively when you know very well that there is shortage of staff and tools of trade? How do you expect them to deliver effectively? There are vacant posts in this department that were not filled. Baze balithwala idombolo elishushu abantwana babantu. Xa kufuneka benze umsebenzi wabantu abalishumi bebabini. The department cannot function effectively under the circumstances mentioned in this motion. Funding cuts in this department will hinder numerous NPOs' ability to provide vital support services, care and protection to the poor and vulnerable. The UTM believes that NGOs plays an intermediary and imperative role in providing essential services where government fails and gets saved by the same NGOs whom they are cutting hands now. The impact includes the inability to employ more social workers, resulting in already higher than recommended caseloads. The government needs to find amicable solutions to the budgetary constraints, as cutting the budget will leave members of communities in a more vulnerable state. UTM strongly advocates for more support and funding for the NPO sector and not budget cuts, as they are at the cold face of service delivery. It is of serious concern to the UTM that duly qualified and registered social workers in the NPO sector are not paid the same as their counterparts in government department. In conclusion, Deputy Chair of Chairs, instead of cutting funds, let us find the money ngoba niyayazi nina ba iphi le mali and niyayazi niyifihlele ntoni. Nifihlele i-campaigns ezi zenu. Izani nemali ke ukuze uluntu lwase Eastern Cape luncedakale. Kungenjalo luyayazi into yobana if in EUDM izawungena njeba izawungena ngo-2024 izakwenza ezi zinto endiveze amanyundululo amaninzi eniwenzileyo. The UDM iyasapota emotion.
Honorable Luana.
Nkosi Chair of Chairs, ndibulise ku Acting Premier ni members of the executive. Amalungu endlu noba andiqalawanga ngawo kodwa ke ndiyazi into yokuba ngabantu bendawo. HOD Wesebe, who's here. Chair of Chairs, let me just highlight a few things before I get to the gist and the conclusion of our submission. That we need to understand that under the Department of Social Development, there are 5 programs. Namely, your admin, social welfare services, children and families, restorative services, development and research, in that order. It therefore becomes imperative that we respond to this motion tabled before this House according to the programs that are mentioned above. Program 2, that is your social welfare services, will continue to fund the same number of NPOs funded in the previous financial year. What I'm saying, I want us to link it to the submission, the heading part of the submission, honorable members, because it may give an impression of non-funding when in fact the issue may be more on the underfunding. And if you follow the submission itself, it's true that there are areas that we have consistently, even members of the committee, have raised and are well captured as well in the submission. In Program 3, there are no NPOs that will not be funded, that were funded in the previous year. In Program 4, an audit of how many NPOs will no longer be funded in the next financial year was conducted, and it was found that 3 VEPs, NPOs, VEPs, the Victim Empowerment Programs, that were not funded in 2023-24 due to their internal conflict, and those are in Chris Hani district, namely Hofmeyer White Door Center, and the other one, O.R. Tambo KSD One-Stop Center, and Rise Up Trauma and Safe Home. Under crime prevention and substance, all their NPOs will be funded. Program 2, given that under this program no NPO will be affected, therefore this will have no effect on the access for social welfare services by the people, as the same NPOs will continue to be funded. And the issue again of non-funding is not applicable in Program 3, And again on Program 8, the audit was based on the beneficiaries allocated to each NPO. The beneficiaries have now been allocated to other NPOs which are offering similar services to ensure that people have continued access to social welfare services. Let me quickly jump this, Honorable Chair of Chairs, and stop being technical to say the African National Congress, of course, notes the inadequacy aspect of the funding of these social services. And it also, as I said earlier on, has been on point in raising the issue around transfers to the NPOs, because that's what has been hitting the NPOs more. That it would take 3 months at the most, even beyond the times for those transfers to reach the NPOs. And by the time they arrive, the NPO would have struggled to an extent that it would be almost closed. So it is important, therefore, to say in the current form, the motion, therefore, could only be supported if that heading of non-funding is amended so that it reflects appropriately and correctly on the issues that are bedeviling the DSD and in particular its relationship with this non-profit organization. So our support, therefore, is subject to that amendment, Honorable Chair of Chairs and honorable members. Thank you very much.
Honorable MEC Fanta.
Chairperson, go.
Honorable MEC, proceed.
Enkosi Sekela Sihlalo Kosihlalo. Ku-Premier in absentia. Honorable Deputy Speaker, ukhona. Honorable members, MECs present, guests in the gallery, ingathazisekho ngoku. Nakumakhasi bonke siyabulisa. Deputy Chair of Chairs, this debate underscores the importance of partnership between government and NPO sector in pursuit of the common goal of building a better life for all our people. Allow me to acknowledge the important contribution of non-profit organizations in the struggle for colonial oppression and apartheid. As a country, we long had been having vibrant non-profit organization that provided important frontline services to help meet the needs of those involved in the liberation struggle and the destitute. From the faith-based organizations, formations, community-based organizations, and various civil society organizations, The oppressors felt the pressure through the work of non-profit organizations supporting the work of the liberation movement. We had organizations supporting detainees, prisoners, abazazi kabanye abantu because babesibamba. Organization exposing human rights abuses in urban and rural areas. Organization exposing police brutality. Sinemivumba emqolo yalo mapolisa ke. Otherwise, mobilization to create troops, to get troops out of townships. Many still, we were working to promote food security, development to enable people to survive under difficult conditions. Siyazazi NPOs how important it was. Nangoku. Therefore, the significance of NPO sector cannot be underestimated. Hence, we have been seeing significant growth in the sector since 1994 due to the enabling environment fostered in the democratic government. The Deputy Chair of Chairs, the Department of Social Development has a statutory obligation to fund certain categories of the programs. In this regard, the department is currently funding NPOs in the communities as extended arm of service delivery to the poor and the vulnerable in our communities. Let me emphasize that the NPO sector remains an indispensable partner for government as we pursue the development agenda. The next financial year, the department will continue to fund the majority of NPOs in across all programs, as is clearly up to Ugaba, with the exception of NPOs under restorative services, whose number of funded NPO posts has decreased by 3. The department undertook an audit of how many NPOs will no longer be funded and found that 3 VEP NPOs will not be funded for 2023-2024 due to their internal conflicts. The audit was based on the beneficiaries allocated to each NPO. The program did not cut funds to these 3 NPOs. However, the NPOs did not meet the criteria for funding due to their internal conflicts. The affected NPOs are Hofmeyer White Door Center in Chris Hani District, KSD One-Stop Center, and Rise Up Trauma and Safe Home in OR District. The department did contact these affected NPOs 3 months in advance with the purpose of raising a risk of not being funded. We were proactive because we didn't want to disadvantage them. Furthermore, our attempts was made for the meetings with management of affected organizations without success. Sesiyenzile lo proactiveness, kodwa abafumaneka. The meeting were facilitated the resolution of the governance challenges experienced by these NPOs, thus affecting their functioning. The affected NPOs were aware that they will not be funded in the midst of these challenges. In order to ensure an uninterrupted delivery of services, beneficiaries, because this is a caring government, yazile ukuba kweza nje bazingazofundwa kodwa kukhona abantu abafana abancediwe. This government make it a point that the beneficiaries are not suffering. Beneficiaries have not been allocated to beneficiaries were now being allocated to other NPOs, which are offering the similar services to ensure people have continued access to service of social development wealth services. That is the caring government. The NPOs and social workers within these 3 districts will extend the service to ensure sustainability, whilst the department will capacitate and mentor the affected NPOs on the governance issues. Ngoba nabo asibalahlanga kufuneka sihambe nabo through ezingxaki zabo zibenza by governance yabo ingabikho right, imali ingabikho right. Furthermore, all Tambo district shelter services that were provided by KSD One-Stop will be available at Tsolo and Mqandulu Safe Homes. Uyeva ke mama uzinti? Increasingly district service providers of Hofmeyr, White Door Center, of Hope will continue to implement the program with the support of
Chair.
Takastad White Door Center.
Xolo, Chair.
Ngiyaxhwaba.
Honorable Cindy?
Enkosi Chair, bendicela ukubuza
Ah,
Honorable
No.
MEC into yobana
No,
uaddressa
no, no,
mna-
no, 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 no.
Okay.
We
No,
must
no, no.
acknowledge that the department
If
is
we are touch
supporting
question uzawutsho, but if we are touch, you can't just say ufuna ubuza.
We must
Uyambuza.
acknowledge
You
that
can't
the
just
department
uthi
is
uyambuza.
supporting
Check
NGOs.
if angayithathi question or not. Thank you.
We must acknowledge that the department is supporting NPOs with available funds. The department has also resolved to ring-fence funds for victim empowerment to ensure continued support to NPOs. NPOs are also capacitated to be able to fundraise and manage funds well for sustainability and governance. Sekela Osihlalo, the department endeavors to improve service delivery excellence, focusing on NPO sector, which is a central to our service delivery model, as well as welfare sector that we all know. Because ngela xesha ababamhlophe nihamba nabo babesibulala basinceda, hence singadlali ngabo. Thus, we have significantly improved on the payment of subsidies to NPOs. The department has been working hard to remedy delays in payment of non-profit organizations in the interest of service delivery, and our endeavors are bearing fruits. Siyayazi ingxaki ibikhona, kodwa siyenzile umsebenzi, and izinto esizenzileyo zikhona fruits esizifumanayo. The department has further prioritized the growing and strengthening of NPO sector through improving the monitoring and management. In realizing this, the strengthening of NPO sector requires the department in the long term to focus on transformational issues through broadening the base by bringing in new entrants, specifically in historically disadvantaged areas. We must hasten to say, Honorable Speaker, Honorable Deputy Chair of Chairs, lest we ignite excitement from those with jaundice view of our country's glaring inequalities. Bayagula, mhlawumbi, singabavuyisi ke, that will not be taking funding from the entities currently subsidized by the department. Sekela somlomo, it is undeniable that we are in full swing of the fourth industrial revolution. The digital age has long dawned on us, and we have a responsibility to ensure that our relevance is aligned to these times. The department will pilot an automated monitoring and evaluation system to track funding of NPOs, and most important, follow up in real time the implementation of programs by our service users. This will allow our social service practitioners to digitally keep track of their work and for use access to crucial data for reporting and auditing process. Sekela Somlomo, Sekela Hlalbohlal, the department acknowledges that the identified backlog of working tools over the past number of years is impacting service delivery negatively. The issue of shortage of working tools, notably vehicles and laptops, it is a big complex because of the following reasons. Historical budget allocation is not aligned with COEs or annual recruitment plan. Budget allocation is not considering the lifespan of existing working tools for maintenance and replacement. And this has a result to a backlog of a new allocation and backlog of replacement of old tools. Laptops carry 4 to 5 years and therefore becomes a moving target, considering the fact that some get lost, damaged, and run out of warranty, and that puts pressure on the replacement budget. Hence, the department viewed this shortage of working tools as a complex of a strategic weaknesses of a long-term planning. Therefore, the shortage of working tools needs to be looked at a critical lifespan. The alignment of recruitment plan, CEOs, and replacement of these movable assets must be taken into account. However, the backlog of working tools is being incrementally addressed on an annual basis, and as and when there is budget, kuprioritizwa zona is made for working tools. In the current financial year, the department has set aside 5.230 million for working tools to address the backlog. The department appreciates the measurable contribution NPOs are making in ensuring safe delivery and the social protection of the vulnerable, marginalized in our communities. Gethamsanqa benikhona malungu abekekileyo xa bebesidakanga i-policy speech yethu pha echazayo ngoba ngezigaba kubo bonke abantu abango-vulnerable kuba sibanika mali na. Siyabulela kakhulu. Enkosi.
Thank you. Honorable Botha, your hand is up.
Deputy Chair of Chairs, yes, I've been considering and consulting in terms of the change that the ANC has proposed from non-funding to inadequate funding in terms of the motion, and I would want to greatly appreciate and agree with that. Thank you.
Therefore, the motion should read as follows, and the draft resolution: inadequate of non-profit organization, inadequate funding of non-profit organizations by the Department of Social Development. I put the draft resolutions.
Agreed.
Thank you. As amended. Thank you. Any objections? Thank you. The Secretary. Order, honorable members. Order. The Secretary, can you read the third and the last subject matter for discussion?
Draft resolution by Mr. P. Anil Kumar, Local Economic Development.
Honorable Anil Kumar.
Honorable Deputy Speaker, our Chief Whip, Acting Premier, all of us, the time is against us. So, local economic development does not need any introduction. So, I may leave here after 2 minutes, 3 minutes, don't worry, because it is an important aspect. And it is one of the most important activities eroding from our own actions and written scripts. Over the last 2 decades, the concept and practice of local economic development has widespread acceptance around the world as locally based response to the challenges posed by the globalization, the devolution, the local level opportunities and economic crisis. Local economic development is seen as one of the most important ways of decreasing destitution and improve the job creation. When African National Congress took office in South Africa following the first duly elected democratic elections, we highlighted the role of local economic development as a way forward to the urban areas, to the small towns, the rural areas of the country. Honorable Speaker, when I present LED, it is practically impossible to separate it from the political landscape of this country. During both the apartheid and the transition period, South Africa was at war with itself and with the neighboring countries. And economic growth, resources, employment and service delivery, particularly to the black majority because of the apartheid regime's destabilization processes. Post-democratization and with the inauguration of the democratically elected African National Congress government, there were envisioned blueprint frameworks that ought to reverse the previous apartheid regime's policies of racism, inequality and segregation. So, local economic development, chair of chairs, has emerged globally as a vital planning approach. The LED approach ultimately aims to create sustainable economic development through the involvement of a range of stakeholders. Successful LED is ultimately about finding local solutions in a local space with the local stakeholders, with the connection of the international stakeholders and the global stakeholders. Developing a thorough understanding of the local economy is crucial prerequisite to formulating a LED strategy that is capable of delivering real opportunities of growth and development. The history tells, what is the issue here? That's a question we should ask, honorable members. What is the issue? The history tells of a distorted local government system that failed to address the needs of the black majority. Before 1994, the country had no single uniform system of local government. The accelerated inequalities in access to basic services such as water, sanitation, electricity, healthcare, and housing. There were notably skewed allocation to the resources that flavored the local authorities in many ways. So we cannot blame municipalities here. The municipalities are always getting the backlog because of the historical injustification it actually based. Now, we also want to say that how do we get local economic development? One is intergovernment relations to be improved. The second one is how we come together. I want to say that we don't have to rediscover the wheels. There is IGR, there is district development model, which was actually put forward by African National Congress. Intergovernmental relations consist the horizontal as well as the vertical relationship among the institutions and individuals in three spheres of governance, like the local sphere is supposed to. The core of this framework is actually based on South Africa's constitution. So we don't have to look for anything. When the ruling party is rational behind the establishment of the National Planning Commission, we actually said in the National Planning Commission that local economic development needs to be addressed. So here I am dispelling a notion. We are not saying nothing is happening. Everything is happening. But it's our role to strengthen this particular item. I'm not going to speak on DDM because of time, but there is so much DDM is talking about how local economic development can be improved. Let me invite your attention, Deputy Chair of Chairs, Dr. Malimu Musheshu, the coordinator and chairman of Ugandan Rural Development and Training Program. Honorable MEC Fanda, he is the founding member of the African Real University for Women, which educates. That was the first one of that kind. He actually promoted change agents for women. He facilitated the development of a large scale and a founder of the community radio 91.7 FM, which got 4 million listeners across Africa. Now, listen to his words. I quote, "The biggest obstacle to development was fatalism. People who believed they could do nothing to shape their future. We stuck to our vision that we were not there to help people with brushing against the grains of history." And then he quotes, this is what made me surprised, or made us surprised as the pragmatic people. He said, he made a reference to South Africa, that is making local economic development work in South Africa, page 20, Development Planning Division Working Paper Series number 5. This is not quoted by a South African, by an Ugandan. And what he did and what he achieved on that is visible to everyone. So I am saying that we don't have to look back and say, we as the ruling party, with other parties, we established these things. It's a matter of doing it. What are the two reasons why local economic development is not succeeding? It's only two things. One, lack of an action-driven LED. Number two, there is a confusion between community development and LED. In South Africa, make no mistake, local economic development is a mandatory process. In Africa, this is the only country which is governed by African National Congress adopted to be a mandatory process as LED. So we don't have to look back and say this is it. We know that, Honorable Woko, that the fiscus is shrinking. But it does not stop in looking for the innovative ways of assessing those resources. It is difficult to strategize and plan something that you cannot imagine. You need to imagine. In other words, LED cannot be separated from the community, but the community involvement and community mobilization are distinct. We should not say that it is one and the same. No. Community involvement is actually a way LED can be improved, because LED is talking about business competitiveness. Honorable Speaker, according to Kenya's Vision 2030, third medium-term plan, MTP3, 2018-2022, strong partnership with NGOs and other non-profitable organizations like trade unions and foundations will strategize the implementation of MTP. And it means in Kenya, the NGO coordination, 5 billion rand has been collected through 1,000 NGOs. So it is possible that in our local sphere, we need to extend that partnership. And that is why we say DDM, IGR are very important. The South African region is experiencing a relatively high influx of immigration into South Africa. When we are talking about immigration, we don't have to say that we are xenophobic. No. It's a matter we are saying anyone can come into the country legally, but he has to pay tax. You can't have a business in a particular area with no systems attached. With the Honorable MEC for Safety, we did a kind of a move around in Alice. We found that out of 100, 99 of them did not pay any fees for the municipality. So those are the things need to be done. So we are saying that that local space need to be protected. I am actually going to come to the conclusion, migration is one of the defining features of 21st century. And it is essential, unavoidable, potentially beneficial. But the question is no longer whether the migration should be accepted. That is not the question. The question should be how to deal with it and manage it effectively for the benefits of the country is South Africa. We cannot be onlookers from the gallery when we are supposed to play our part. Lastly, non-availability of economic data related to the parties. Honorable Minister for Economic Development stood here, and if you remember, he said at that point that there is a list of people being compiled and there is a consolidated list of local people are going to be done. That needs to be prioritized so that each and every town we know that who is doing business. All municipalities supposed to have functional LED offices. We know that the fiscus is shrinking, but if the offices are not filled, it will not be. Let me land by saying the quotes of Jane Jacobs, a US-Canadian journalist, author, theorist, and activist who influenced urban studies, sociology, and economics. She was the woman and a writer who criticized experts in the male-dominated urban planning. This is what she said. Destitution has no causes. I repeat, destitution has no causes. Only prosperity has causes. Analytically, heat is a result of active process. It has causes. But cold, when you get cold, it is the absence of the heat. It is only the absence of the heat which can make cold. So, the great cold of destitution and economic stagnation is merely the absence of economic development. So, I presume, and we all supposed to presume, that local economic development is key and we need to be implemented. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Anil Kumar. Sorry. The next one is Honorable Makaka.
Sekela Sihlalo Sihlalo, members of this house, abantu abakwi gallery, allow me to present my speech on effective local government. Honorable Sekela Sihlalo Sihlalo, we often hear about effective local development. In order to fully achieve such, we must have good governance. Good governance essentially requires principle of ensuring effective local government development. We believe in a partnership approach to development. The government has a critical role to play in creating and expanding opportunities so that citizens can flourish and live lives they value. In turn, communities have a responsibility to themselves, their families, and their communities to make the most of those opportunities. This lies at the heart of the development. It is how we will create a province that is dynamic, full of opportunities, vibrant, and essentially a leader in the developing world. Local economic development is an approach which allows and encourages local people to work together and to achieve sustainable growth and development. This then allows more economic benefits and improves the quality of life of the residents in a municipal area. In the case of good governance, it is difficult to convince communities to work together with the government as there is no trust in them and capabilities to deliver on the promises made. The local level, Chair, is indeed one of the most appropriate places for economic interventions, as it carries alongside accountability. It is also the closest to our communities. As a province, it is more important than ever that we take a stock of exactly where we are as a province, and that we are brutally honest about the challenges we are facing and the impact on our economy and our people. And more importantly, Chair, that we put practical solutions on the table to assist our people. As a province, Chair, we have focused, and mostly on paper, reduction and eradication of unemployment, poverty, and inequality. When you want to address the unemployment and poverty and inequality, you must start at the sphere of government closest to the people, the sphere of government where every action or inaction has a ripple effect on the lives of all residents, which is our local government. Essentially, where we have functional local government, we will have effective local development. Local municipalities, Chair, all around in the Eastern Cape are collapsing at the expense of the people of this province. Service delivery is deteriorating rapidly in the wake of serious financial mismanagement with bloated local authorities and cater deployment. Municipalities in the Eastern Cape fail to adhere to the letter of the law of local government legislation. Finances are in shambles. Many of them are standing on the edge of a physical cliff. This creates further difficulties for these municipalities to be able to implement their plans towards economic development. There is a kind of lawlessness within our municipalities. That has infiltrated so much that individuals believe they are untouchable, and good governance is affected negatively. The cost of unemployment continues to strain municipalities.
5 minutes left.
Hence, we constantly see late payment of salaries and protest actions. We must be sympathetic to the workers who work each day to serve our people despite them not being compensated in time. This spirit of hope that the people of the Eastern Cape continue to have. The efficiency of local municipalities will determine whether money that is meant for the people is spent on the people and whether such expenditure generates value for money. It's crucial to note the manner in which a municipality allocates, spends, and accounts for its finances will determine the quality of life we will live, whether there is electricity when you flick your switch, whether you have to take the longest route to whether you have to navigate flowing streams of sewer when taking a walk. It will determine whether your street lights are working, whether your parks are maintained, and whether we have safe neighborhoods among many. Chair, municipalities intend in planning is crucial, but unless if there are no financial resources available to ensure that LED and that government partnerships must be strengthened to mitigate local challenges. The issue of an economic data compilation requires much more engagement and understanding, as there are already existing national database through the central supplier database system. If we want to have a capable state, we must ensure public funds are spent with complete transparency and accountability, and to the benefit of the people of the province of the Eastern Cape. We must, as the Eastern Cape Chair, have a caring, capable government that works for all the people by building a province of hope and accountability. Thank you.
Honorable Sondaba.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Chair of Chairs, Honorable Acting Premier, members of Executive Council, Honorable members of this august House, Table Staff, Secretary of the Legislature, and technical support staff. Honorable Deputy Chair of Chairs, I wish to move from my point of departure to be a premise where whoever is starting this debate, if you cannot locate it or situate it on a historical context, you'll miss the boat. And mazi uba Honorable Osuka apha impida njani naloo nto. I think Comrade Makaka Sindiso should have taught him that. May his soul rest in peace. May his soul rest in peace. Honorable Deputy Chair of Chairs, I think I must preface it by giving the outlook of the country in relation with economic development. The country is faced by low levels of economic growth at 2% for the year 2021 to 2022. This is, however, a rather lower economic growth rate when averaged from pre-COVID of 2019 to 2022, comprising a 0.3% average growth rate. This is accompanied by high levels of unemployment that stood at a national average of 32.7% in the fourth quarter of 2022. With expanded unemployment rate standing at 42.6%. Honorable members, you shall understand that the province is microcosm of national scale with development challenges that the province, that mirror those of South Africa at large. This paucity is demonstrated by provincial economic growth rate, which is standing at 1.7 below the national rate of 2% at the end of 2022. Whilst unemployment rate for the province was standing at 42.4% in the fourth quarter of 2022, with expanded unemployment rate standing at 47.1 in the same period. Honorable members, we cannot prophesize the situation of despair as our municipalities supported by COGTA are earnestly implementing programs that are designed and meant to take us out of quagmire. Achieving sustainable local and regional economic development has continued to be one of the critical ingredients of the Eastern Cape government to transform provincial development outlook. Economic development in the province must therefore be accelerated, but there is no lack in the light of what we highlighted before, the context, because we need to debunk apartheid special plan if we are to address some of the challenges. If you start from now, you will miss the debate. The provincial government, through COGTA, is therefore implementing these programs which are premised on the national framework of local economic development, the integrated urban development framework, as well as community work programs, which are implemented through the manual. National framework on LED, which is provincial championed by COGTA, requires municipalities to develop and implement bankable economic development strategies. Whilst the integrated urban development framework requires municipalities to transform special configuration of cities and towns to enhance local economic development. On the other hand, the community work programs implementation manual requires collaboration from three spheres of government. That is why you have district development model. And I'm highlighting these things to show the seriousness of government in terms of making sure that we implement local economic development, but you have to highlight challenges which are faced by our government. Honorable members, the value of economic planning cannot be underestimated, as I already indicated. And the SMEs also require seed funding from the same government. A study that was commissioned by Institute of Local Government found that only 40% of the projects contained in the LED strategies are implemented, mostly due to insufficiency of funds from both public as well as private sectors. So, implementation of economic plans through partnerships. I will just highlight some partnerships with at a local sphere of government, because we must see that the government is doing something about this local economic development. I'll come up with practical examples. For instance, PG Bison and Elundini LM on disaster management and SME enterprise, Moher South Africa and Dr. Peyas Nodi LM supporting Moher South Africa on all value chain opportunities. COGTA and Eastern Cape and University of Water, they are in partnership, KSD and United Kingdom Pact through DBSA, Honey Bushti and Sarah Patman. I highlight these things to show you practical examples of what is being done by ANC-led government to the ANC-led municipalities. We don't want to pretend as if there is virtually nothing which is actually happening in that space. On the small town development, the Office of the Premier is taking a charge and the lead in terms of small town revitalization. Let me take you through memory lane, honorable members, to the period when there was two-tier municipal system in the country. One responsible for urban area and centers. The other one was responsible for townships, where you had, if you still remember, honorable members, about provincial councils and village boards. So now the ANC has transformed that. And we need to be very patient because the way in which we address these issues at a local level need patience from us and making sure that we explain these things. Some do forget about what we are doing. I'll jump many things because even Honorable Pillay, this motion was about us, which we concur entirely with it, was not dismissing that there is a lack of development at a local sphere, but the appreciation was that we need, as an ANC from us, we need to knock sense into ourselves that we need to accelerate development. That is what it's all about. And the ANC, we are supporting that fully and entirely because we are saying to ourselves, we're talking to ourselves that we need to accelerate, which is a good thing. I think it's a renewal on our part. In this regard, the State Master Plan was completed in 2022 and is currently being implemented. Other endeavors is improvement of location conditions for the retainment of Rance timbers and Anchor chickens as the biggest employers in the area. So those are the highlights which we want to put forward here. The program is further deploying CWP's participants to small towns for maintenance of road infrastructure, including potholes repairs in Amtata, unblocking of stormwater drains, and contributing to cleanliness of the Mtata, Port Alfred, Mount Elif, Ngobo, Mount Fletcher, and so on and so on. The second economy intervention. COGTA has also participated in second economy programs where employment safety net is provided to create job opportunities for needy community members through the program. 47,000 work opportunities were created and 1,800 training opportunities provided. These are efforts which are being made by this government. One of the critical areas, Honorable Deputy Chair of Chairs, is that we require conscious support in the capacitation of local SMEs and municipal staff. In this regard, the department and partners entered into partnerships in order to assist the small, medium enterprise, SMEs. Furthermore, the department, in partnering through a national business initiative on training government employees on data analysis and economic planning. These are the efforts which this government is doing. And on concluding, Deputy Chair of Chairs, I'll conclude by the words of Portuguese author Amil Cabral, still resonates even today when he writes, I open quote, always bear in mind that the people are not fighting for ideas, for the things in anyone's head. They are fighting to win material benefits, live better and in peace, to see their lives go forward.
Mandingathanda ukuve Honorable Kunqola apho sibona, please.
And to guarantee the future of their children, close quote. Local economic development, Honorable Deputy Chair of Chairs, therefore remains relevant to unblocking the provincial economic challenges, but will require the support of this House. We support the acceleration of local economic development in our municipality. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Honorable Sondaba. Honorable MEC Consuwe.
Good afternoon to you, Deputy Chair of Chairs, the Deputy Speaker, the Chief Whip, the honorable members that are here, and the fellow members of the Executive Council. Good afternoon. Honorable Deputy Chair of Chairs, the baseline of COGTA stems from an African National Congress's economic vision of the Freedom Charter's call, Freedom Charter, that the people shall share in South Africa's wealth. Secondly, a democratic developmental state capable of intervening effectively to transformation economic relations is at the heart of this department called COGTA. In so doing, COGTA will fast-track the compilation of economic data of people who are involved in various business enterprises across the province. The department is presently engaged with Stats SA, EXEC, municipalities, and universities in gathering data on people who are driving economic sectors and contributing to the gross domestic product, GDP. The department then is pleased to announce that a tool has been developed and piloted in Sundays River Valley Municipality to assess the state of the formal and informal businesses in municipalities. Honorable Deputy Chair of Chairs, all municipalities will from 2023 have effective and functional local economic development units, which will be fully staffed and performing maximally. That's improving on this part. Their performance will be assessed quarterly to ensure that there is a good progress. Because COGTA is not sleeping at work, at present, majority of municipalities have got integrated planning and economic development sections. The sections will be empowered to discharge their responsibilities effectively. Some shining examples of such municipalities are Sundays River, Kouga, and Senqu municipality. COGTA is then seized with an opportunity to help capacitate municipalities to improve their LED capacities, including developing realistic plans to deal with the challenges hampering the LEDs. COGTA has plans to the National Business Institute to provide mentorship programs, as well as incubation approach and value-add proposition. To this end, districts such as Joe Kabi District Municipality, Chris Hani, and Sarah Batman have upcoming economic growth summits before the end of this financial year. The summits will afford these municipalities to engage with various stakeholders and catalytic projects, as well as the trickle-down economic effects to the people. The Eastern Seaboard Development and cannabis are a cherry on top to this province. Deputy Chair of Chairs, the province has entered into partnerships to boost local economic development in municipalities and institutions like ECRDA, University of Forte, Stillwater Mining Company, DDIT, Small Business Development Department, Municipal Development Agencies, SMMEs, and the Department of Small Business and Development to support municipalities on technical expertise as well as sourcing of funds from the DFI and states entities. It is so unfortunate that our people have to compete with foreign business in their space. However, COGTA has made a progress on ensuring that local people are being trained so that they are able to compete with foreign businesses in our townships and villages. In conclusion, the department will turn around things. We will continue to support the municipalities as per the mandate, and we will continue to advance and promote the local economic development. Ndiyabulela kakhulu Sekela Sihlalo wesihlanu. Enkosi.
Thank you, Honorable MEC Konsiwe. Honorable members, I defer the last motion in terms of Rule 77, paragraph C, which reads as follows. A majority of the members must be present before a vote may be taken on any other question before the legislature. And unfortunately, 3 honorable members left this plenary. So, kule plenary ke ngoku we don't have a quorum. That concludes the discussions on this matter. and the business for the day. The House will adjourn until further notice. The House is adjourned.
Honorable members, lunch is served at the dining hall. Thank you.
Ikon quorum for lunch.